Imagine your trip to work. Is there a piece of art that you pass by? If you're lucky, I hope so. And have you ever stopped to admire that piece? What comes to mind? Do you notice the intricacies of each shape, maybe shade and color? What are you feeling as you look at it? Mei Lin is a Chinese-born illustrator located in Pullman. She creates physical and digital art for the public to enjoy. In this episode of Traverse Talks, Mei and I discuss unpaid labor in the art world, the complicated relationship Mei has with her grandfather, and the fear of living as a minority in America. I'm Sue-Ann Ramella. Jiemei.
Yeah.
Jiemei Lin?
Yeah, Jiemei Lin.
Jiemei Lin.
But you can call me Mei.
But isn't that annoying being in America and you have to...
In fact, it's my parents call me Mei too.
They call you Mei too? Okay.
So Jiemei sounds really formal to me, and I grew up in an environment like everyone just try to be casual. Mm-hmm. And then when I went to college and people started calling me Jiemei, and I would be like, who is Jiemei?
It's too formal.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your art. You have this amazing mural in Spokane for Black Lives Matter.
Right.
Bold type, great colors that really pop. And inside each letter is a scene. Mm-hmm. How did you come up with this concept?
So I actually only did one letter. So that project is super cool. They had 16 artists. Like they are all people of color. And then we all get together to paint this mural, and I got the first T.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, so
it was a collaborative.
Yes. So my concept for that mural was flowers from Africa. Mm. But then they brought them here for the American gardens.
They did?
Yeah, so like, for example, like African poppy, that's like really popular here. And then for some gardens, they were weeds.
Right.
And for some gardens, they were flowers. And I just intentionally picked flowers like that and put on the mural.
Isn't that interesting that some plants to some people or some areas are weeds versus they're ornamental, beautiful flowers?
Yeah, like a dandelion. Like a dandelion is a kind of medicine in China.
Yep.
And like for all the kids, that's like the way to make a wish. Like it's so dreamy. And then for the older generation, that's the food, that's Chinese medicine.
This is so interesting, Mei, because I have found many Western gardeners will try to poison the medicine that could actually save their digestion.
Yes. my mom tried to harvest dandelion in our garden, and then she tried to make the tea, and turns out she didn't know how, because in China she just buy them from store and they were already processed. Mm-hmm. So she didn't know the process. So whatever she made was really weird.
It was probably very bitter.
Yeah.
So back to the tea, you put flowers in there from Africa. Mm-hmm. And then I read that in this area they held a COVID vaccine party.
What is that?
Okay, so after it was done, the Black Lens community, that's a newspaper, they held a vaccination clinic, quote, party where people came to go get vaccinated by the mural.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I didn't know that. That's so awesome.
I'm glad you think so, because your artwork, your tea, was looking down upon the people as they were together, right? Trying to solve more issues together.
Yeah, that's just great. I feel like well, there are a lot of ways for community to get together. Like as an artist, the thing I'm good at the most is just sharing my creativity to people. And for like medical workers, that's their contribution, and that's huge. That's great. They are amazing.
Oh, that's so nice of you to say. Yeah, they've been really busy working. But
I know.
I feel artists have been, too, on an emotional level, trying to express something for the people to meditate on and feel better, or at least, I don't know, explore some hidden things inside.
Yeah, I guess, or just I think for like a public art, that's something everyone can see and it's free. right? It's huge. And everyone owns that piece of art, you know? When you see a piece of art, you are part of it because you project yourself on it and you become part of the work. That's why I like to make public art, because I feel it's very inclusive.
Oh, that's beautiful. I guess I never really thought about my involvement in being with that public art piece, and now I will.
Well, that's so. This is so funny, but a lot of people ask me, "Oh, so I went to the museum. I just feel so bad because I cannot understand the art," and I thought, maybe that's just how you feel about it. I'm confused. I feel confused. I can't understand, and that's how you feel about it, and you're part of it, to feel confused about it. Or sometimes people feel like, oh my God, it's so disorganized. I feel so discomfortable when I see this painting.
That's part of it.
Yeah, that's part of it.
Oh, this is interesting because I almost wonder if the general public has not really been educated on how to experience art, that it is okay to have all these different feelings.
I feel it's so easy for people to feel music. Like when you listen to a piece of music, when you listen to a song, and you just immediately feel, oh, I feel sad, and I feel so connected with the lyrics. You are doing the same thing to the arts, but it's just so hard to describe it. I guess because music maybe like it's more natural to us. I don't know exactly, but I think they are the same feeling.
For me, it's just a lack of training. I have not been exposed to many art pieces. For you, though, when you make these large public murals, do you have an intent for a feeling you want people to have?
So it depends. Like, for example, if I did the Black Lives Matter mural in Pullman, so that piece, it says end racism now. So that's very direct message. But like for like a more abstract pieces, like I did another one in downtown with all these little cubes.
Yes.
So that one, just you can feel whatever you want, because what I did, I just tried to play with the space, play with the architecture of the hotel building, and see what I can do, see if I can create more space and more elements.
Well, I think you definitely succeeded in creating space, because when I look at that piece, which has a yellows and blues and orange, and the squares and other shapes in there, some pop out and some look like they recess. It makes me want to feel active.
Oh, that's great.
Like jump in and participate in this.
This is so interesting because I used to walk by that building, and I always thought, you know what, I really want to do like a weird art project with all these like little squares on top. And then the hotel found me. I was like, oh, I have this idea.
You made it come true.
Yeah, I know. And then I sent the design to them, and they really like it. So I feel so lucky.
Okay, so as an artist who does large murals, how do you get your work? I mean, that sounds serendipitous. But
how do I get my work?
Yeah, do people call you and then you say, it's going to be $5,000?
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. But so at the beginning, so if you're a young artist and just started and you want to do mural, and the best way to do it is you make a lot of work, just like on computer, and then you find the different buildings and take photo and make mock-ups on Photoshop.
Oh.
And then you can either post on social media, or you can find the building, just say, hey, can I paint this?
Yeah. Well, speaking about art, May, you're a staff member. You do graphic design at WSU's College of Education. So I have a question about tech stuff, because I notice that your artwork is, you do computer, you do all kinds of things. So in a rapidly changing digital landscape, do you think we'll start to find less physical artwork and more things in the virtual world?
Well, okay, so here's my answer. I don't think the physical stuff will ever be gone, because that's just like making music. That's just part of us being human being. And there will always be people truly appreciate doing things with your hand. But on another hand, even though doing things on media feel like like digital media feel like you're not working with your hand, but it's very handy too. Like it's just different tools, like let's say like Andy Warhol. So his concept pretty much he's thinking of, okay, so we are going to live in a world that the image will be copy and pasted nonstop and put on different things, right? He predicted this world we are living in right now, but that time the technology for him was printmaking, like a silk screen. So what he could do was just keep copying and pasting things on the printmaking. Well, his stuff now is copy and paste on on social media like all the time, and that was part of his intention as well, right?
Yeah.
So my point is, it's all tools. Like a brush is a tool. Photoshop is a tool. But the real question is how we display art or like how we share art with each other. I feel like now it's so tricky because all the artists feel pressure. They have to be on social media and keep posting their work and keep promoting themselves. And I feel like every artist is forced to be a marketing person now in a weird way. And then we're all doing like a free label for Facebook, Instagram.
May.
And I feel they're so evil. And I feel so bad. But then I also feel like I don't have another way to
show your work.
Yeah, so I feel it's very complicated.
You are an indentured a bit to the social media in order to showcase your work.
Yeah.
And then I'm curious, does that make you not want to put in that energy? I always assume that an artist gets a feeling or a muse or some inspiration and you create out of this feeling, but then the thought of having to put in the marketing work to promote your art could suck away from that intent.
For sure. Yeah. So I would say like if I was 15 and if I live in this time as a 15-year-old and 15-year-old me, I think I would be very into Instagram and like very into social media because that time I had so much passion and desire just showing my work. I was like posting terrible drawings on MySpace that time. Right. And so, yeah, so like I feel like because I was so young and I had so much desire to display my work and to show myself, that was okay. But also I heard so much terrible things, so much terrible influence that Instagram put on teenagers. So,
oh, you've heard about the studies.
Yeah, right. So, yeah. But for now, because I just couldn't stop thinking about this idea of like we're doing free label to those social media company by showing my work on it, but like for a digital media artist, for an illustrator, I feel like that's truly one of the best way to put myself out there.
It's quick and easy.
It's quick and easy, and it seems like it's free, but it's definitely not free. And I just try my best to keep this balance to make myself don't feel like I'm working for Instagram.
At nwpb.org, you can find Northwest news, classical music, jazz, and art and culture stories. There's much to explore on Northwest Public Broadcasting's website, nwpb.org.
Can you tell us the story about your grandfather and the significance of indigo?
So my grandfather, he just passed away, actually.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Oh, thank you.
How old was he?
Like 101.
Sweet.
Right.
That's incredible.
I know. So my grandfather is, so now I think, when I think of him, he was like a very complicated person to me. When I was young, I think he was probably the first artist I have ever met. But at that time, I didn't have the language. I didn't know what he did was art. So I would find all these like little pieces of paper in the bathroom and every corner of his house and there were like poem written on it. And pretty much he just like walking around, and then he had this idea and he wrote it down, and he just put the poem over there, like right on the table or like on top of the toilet paper holder. It's just super random. And for some reason, I picked up that skill, so I started making like little drawings everywhere in the house as well. So you can find like the side of the newspaper, there will be a little drawing there, here, and there.
This sounds delightful.
Yes, it is. It is. It's very interesting, and I would always appreciate that. I would always appreciate that influence he given to me, which is like when you feel like to make something, you know?
Do it.
Do it. It can be very small. Like nobody will read it. It's fine.
I want to know, though, do you remember what the poems were or what they...
So I'm so sorry I can't, because they were all like they were written in this form of like a poem from Song Dynasty, and I'm not very good at classic Chinese.
Okay, so it's reading classic Chinese.
Yeah, but usually it's like a poem about like something happened to him, but then he was written in this special form.
And May, your grandfather, when you say something happened to him, I mean, he was a part of the Chinese Revolution, or he was a protester?
So he went to college in 40s, and that was World War II, so he had to travel all the way to like Chongqing. Chongqing was the temporary capital of China at that time, because we lost Nanjing to Japanese. So he was like a super radical, because he was born in this very, very old-fashioned family, and like he feel like, I hate my whole life. I hate my super traditional dad. So he started publishing a lot of writing, like very, very critical and very, very radical writing on the newspaper, and that definitely got him into trouble at the beginning of People's Republic of China, because that time the government was like very sensitive about the message. So him and his younger brother, they were both very, very smart and very radical, and they were writing stuff and publish on the newspaper and having like a big argument with people on newspaper, I guess. And they got into trouble. And so they had to like change their names. So my grandfather picked his name. His name's Lin Qing, and Qing means indigo. And his little brother is Bai, Lin Bai, and Bai means white. So there's a phrase in China, there's indigo and white, nothing to hide. So they want to tell people that they are completely honest, that they have nothing to hide.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that story about your grandfather in indigo. Your artwork you have quite a few pieces that do indigo and white.
Right.
Is it directly related to your...
Yes, because I feel like he probably was one of the very first person taught me what feminism was. Well, my grandmother was like a working mother, and my grandfather lost his job because he got himself in trouble, so he was like a stay-home dad for a long time, and he also felt very conflict about that identity. He felt bad for himself. In Chinese, we have this phrase like you call like a man depends on women's job. They call people like that eat soft rice. Soft rice, right? And then so like he's like a soft rice for years, and he felt bad. And then but at the same time, he kept telling me, hey, like your grandmother was amazing. Like she was so strong and so independent, and she worked so hard for everyone, and you should be like that. Like every woman should be like that.
May, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and he was like, my grandpa was rode his tricycle. He has this like trike and with like a little, I don't know, it's a basket in the back. It's so illegal, so he passed away, so don't arrest him. But he put me in that little basket, and he would like rode me everywhere, and that was the time he gave me those lessons. Like if you like writing, you need to write poems, because that's the best way to write, like stuff like that. And also he told me that, I giving you a generation name, and not every girl has it because people don't believe girls belong to the family because they will be married to someone else.
Yeah,
right?
let's talk about that for our listener, because in Chinese culture, generational names, you have
Yeah,
Lin.
some old family, they do that. Like they have this generation names. Usually it's in the middle of the name. For example, my name's Lin Jiemei. Lin is my family name, and Jie is my generation name. And the Mei is just like kind of like a given name.
Your given name, yeah. And it is unusual because women were not given this generational
Right, because
name.
I supposed to be a Hedges because I will be married to this Hedges guy, right? But my grandfather, he told me, you will always be Lin, you will always be in this family, and we're giving you this name. And he said, oh, you're always your own person, right? That's amazing. But when I grew up, I just couldn't. That bothered me so much. It's like, why he taught me all this? And why my very cool, independent, strong grandmother never said anything about like how amazing she was and what a kind of a strong woman I should be. You know, my grandmother, we were very close too, and I just feel like she never got the chance to tell me her story. And
Why do you think that is?
I think like because my grandpa was this artist of the family, and then he just turned into this storyteller, and my grandmother just feel like, okay, let him tell the story. But at the same time, I think probably he gave her a lot of pressure to not speak because he's actually did come from old culture.
So a bit of patriarchy still within him.
Yeah.
Though he's pushing you to be independent and...
But at the same time, he would also like it. I remember when I just got married, and he wrote me this super long letter about like, it's terrible you married to someone who's not from your culture. And then, like, if you got into trouble, nobody will help you because everyone will be American around you. They will never understand you. Like, he wrote me a letter like that.
Complicated person.
Yes.
Because in some areas he seems progressive, and in other areas he seems old-fashioned and difficult. But
Yeah.
But isn't that the case with everybody?
Yes, that's exactly the reason why I made all this artwork for him, because I feel like the way he feels about me, I feel like he projected a lot of himself on me when I was young. And he wanted me to be this person he probably felt like he couldn't be. But then when I actually started doing certain things, he realized, oh no, she's my little granddaughter. Like, how could I just put her to a world like this?
So a protection.
Yeah.
I often think about that with our loved ones, is even though it seems really hurtful what they're saying or doing,
Yeah.
I want to believe it comes from a place of love.
Yeah.
That they don't know how to break through some of these barriers.
Yeah. Also, his idea about world probably is very not updated. So...
Wow. And how has that influenced you and your parents? You know, because I feel like our relatives and ancestors, the things that they choose to do, have an impact on you in the modern day.
Yeah. So my grandfather was like he was a very weird old person, I would say. Like, he would tell me all these terrible stories happened to him, and I feel like he should never tell stories like that to a little kid.
You were little.
Yeah, the terrible things happened to him. Like they burned all his books and stuff like that. And I was like so traumatized. Oh my God, don't burn my book, right? And then at the same time, sometimes I will ask him like really sharp questions, like if I watch a news, and I would have all these questions about like... So that time I just started learning the Marxism, the philosophy, and then the goal of Marxism is everyone like live in a communist world and harmony and working together, motivated, right? And then, but at the same time, like on the news, there were just so much like negative things about like other countries and like intentionally, like, of course, like, Americans are so evil, right? And I would ask my grandpa, so if our goal is to live in a world everyone loves each other, like, why do we have to hate, like, Americans? Or like, and my grandpa, it's super hard question to answer. My dad was completely shocked. He was like, oh, I don't know what to say. And then my grandpa would say, oh, good girl. Keep thinking this way. You can do it.
Wow.
So I was like encouraged to, now I know it's critical thinking. I didn't have language for it, but I realized, oh, what you taught me was critical thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That it was okay to not align and to question. I find this, though, very interesting that your grandfather was a radical thinker in a culture that was pretty much don't question authority.
Yes.
And he encouraged you. So was your dad or your mom this way as well?
I would say yes and no. It's like, for example, if I ask a question like that, my dad will be like, wow, you are so smart, but I don't know what to say. So I decide not to talk about it. But I'm so proud of you by asking this question, but I really don't have answers. So maybe you will figure it out.
And then how do you then raise your kid? Like if they ask these questions or they have critical thinking about you, the way you live or your thoughts?
I mean, I went to grad school in fine arts. I can answer anything weird. My husband is even better, so just try us.
Love it.
Hey, I'm Ash, a producer for Traverse Talks with Sue Ann Ramilla. If you like the show, we would love to hear from you. Leave a rating and review wherever you listen. Thank you.
And May, your husband is a white guy, American?
Yeah, he is. He's white.
So you are raising a Hapa.
Hapa, yeah.
What has that experience been like for you?
Oh, that's an interesting question. So in a interracial marriage, I think the most question you will get from both of your culture will be, oh, how do you feel like to live or marry to someone who's so different as you? But the fact is, my husband is an artist. We met in art school, and he was super weird. I was super weird. We never felt that we fit in, ever. And then if you brought like a person from his hometown, he's from Trenton, Ohio. Let's say you randomly pick a girl from Trenton, Ohio. Maybe I don't think he has so much common with this girl. And you randomly pick a guy from Hangzhou, China. Well, you know, the fact is we're very similar people, but yes, we do not look alike because apparently I'm Chinese. He's British American, right? But we are actually very similar people. So this is super funny. I feel the same way about my son. Like he's his own person. Yes, he's half Caucasian, half Asian. But then he look like himself too. Like he can be anyone. He got super tan during summer, and he could be someone could mistaken. Actually, someone did mistaking him as like a Hispanic kid. That's totally cool, and he could be anyone. He could just be Linus, the race of future.
Exactly.
Right.
Blending is interesting as a mixed race person, but sometimes it also comes with these confusions because you may not quite fit, like you didn't feel like you quite fit. And then now we have, you know, am I white? Am I Chinese? What does it mean to be American?
Yeah.
These conversations I find so fascinating because there hasn't been, and I don't think there ever will be, an answer.
Yeah, but I also feel like that a lot of like immigrants, they feel the same way too. I'm sure like your mom probably had the same question. I don't know if she talked that to you.
May, thank you for bringing up my mother. It kind of is a theme with these podcasts. This Traverse Talks podcast is like personal therapy for me when I talk about my mother. I honestly just recently had this conversation with her where it dawned on me that she has lived in this country so long and been away from Korea, and Korea has changed rapidly.
Right.
Like even their language, the more modern Korean words, she's still using words that came from when they were occupied by Japan.
Oh.
And the food she loved growing up with was essentially third world poor people food that they don't eat anymore. So she no longer really fits in there in Korea.
Yeah.
And she doesn't fit in here either 100%. So she's in this world. So I identified with her on another level growing up as being a half American, half Asian, that my mother is now also in her way half.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think actually for like immigrants, that kind of conflict is even stronger because like for me, I feel bad sometimes if I feel so fitting here. You know what I mean? Like for example, I'm eating like a cheeseburger because it's so good, and at the same time I would just feel guilty. Oh my God.
That's fascinating. Do you feel guilty for feeling like you belong or you enjoy?
Like both. It's like wow, like you are embracing this like this super American thing, but at the same time, it's totally cool because I did grow up eating cheeseburger, right? But at the same time, I feel like, but why are you enjoying it so much?
That little voice in your head.
Yeah.
I feel as if so many of us have this critic living in our brains that is always giving us a hard fucking time.
I know, and at the same time, I always not criticize myself, but like have this awareness, like you cannot value people from different background in the same way because they grew up in different philosophy. But like it's so hard for me to keep that in my mind because I just can't help to think like, oh, the way I like the best is the best. For example, like critical thinking, that's like, oh, I feel it's so important for me to think critically in this like a very special method, right? And then if you don't do that, then it will be like, why are you not think? But, you don't have to. Everyone can live the way they want. But it's just so hard for me.
So you're acknowledging the little bias voice you have.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable sometimes.
It's super uncomfortable.
I really appreciate your honesty about it because I have these things too, and I have to check. And in some areas, I'll be on, working in media, sometimes it is very risky to admit that you have these thoughts.
Yeah.
Because not everybody will allow you to learn or accept that you made a mistake or that you are in the process of evolving your thinking.
Right. That's why we all need therapy.
Amen, sister. Okay, so I have some political questions for you.
Okay.
Because I feel like artists are often tapping into our emotions, but also challenging some of our thought processes in politics. So you, as a woman of Asian descent, did you ever feel threatened during the pandemic because of the hate towards Asians?
So I never had anything really aggressive happen to me personally. I feel very lucky. Nobody ever told me to go back to China. If they said that to me, that's fine because I am from China. I feel bad. Okay, I feel so bad for all the Korean Americans, Japanese Americans that they have to go back to China. They can go to my mom's house. I feel so bad for them. So the first time I feel like, I feel so scared and threatened was the mass shooting. Because before, I saw all this news about mass shooting, usually they were toward to a Muslim community or well, it's always really scary to me, but those hate crime. But then just because, this is terrible to say that, because they don't look like me, so I may deep down feel like, oh, it's someone else's story. But then when the Atlanta mass shooting happened, and I just realized, you know what? It doesn't matter like what art I make or like who I am, what name I have, who my parents are, it doesn't matter how cute my kid is. Like my faith will got me killed. And when like a hate crime happened, like the person with a gun will not go check on your passport. Doesn't matter if you are Chinese from China or Chinese-born American, you're Korean from South Korea. It doesn't matter. Like your face will get you killed. Just like if you wear a turban. That concept just like it became super obvious, and it's so big. It's so clear to me, and I certainly feel, yeah, that is a real fear. I remember the day I read news and I had to go to Pullman Building Supply to buy some and I thought someone could just come in and shoot me just because how I look. It doesn't matter who I am.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I started the Stop API Hate on the Pulse rally.
That was you.
That was me with Dr. Yongkin Lee.
Thank you so much, May, for doing that.
Thank you.
That was really bold and quick. I remember seeing that on social media and in the paper, and I really appreciated that. And the community really came out in support.
Yes, that was like 300 people. I was shocked. That was my first rally, I would say. So Stop API on the Pulse was my first rally, and I organized it with Yongkin and Song Yang. And they're amazing people. And so sad they have to go back to China, even though they're South Koreans.
On that note, I wanted to ask you about the model minority myth. Are you aware of this?
Oh, yeah.
And how have you benefited from it, and what are your thoughts about it now?
So my uncle, my dad's older brother, and he went to the U.S. in 80s, and then he went here for PhD, and then he got his PhD, and he got a great job here, and he is the textbook model minority, right? And he would tell me that, okay, that's the life of Asian American. You work hard and you get a big house, you get a better life, and everyone would respect you. But then at the same time, I quit to argue with him. But I would say like, oh, I don't believe this. Because look, there's some like hardworking Korean woman got killed just because how she looked, right? And at the same time, of course, racism, if you are a Chinese kid, if you are an Asian American person in the U.S., go to public school or any school, and then you face like macroaggression every single day, that will be in some weird way. And racism is real. It doesn't matter how much your salary is. Let's say if you are like someone makes so much money and with this big house, but you will still be like, okay, nobody look like me on TV, right? I don't know. There's so much things people have to face. It's not related with your income. It's not related with your social status. In fact, I think all Asian Americans, because of racism we have to face, because ignorance we have to face, because of we are for some reason modern minorities, and we got more ignorance, we got ignored more, we got forgotten. Nobody can pronounce my name correctly, right? Yeah, stuff like that happened to us. That's actually a great proof of the we are, for some reason, secondary citizens.
Thank you, May, so much for this conversation.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
Our guest was Mei Lin, artist, illustrator living in Pullman, Washington. Her works are vibrant, and I hope you found the conversation the same. Thanks for listening to Traverse Talks. I'm Sue Ann Ramella.